This year I'm growing my parents' entire garden from seed for them. So not only do I have my seed, I have my parents' seed going, and then whatever I can sell. And then I have my other buddy who's gonna be starting a garden, so I have stuff for him. So as you can see, we have space as a real premium. Nothing better to do on a rainy day than talk about seeds. So behind me is where the majority of my seed starting goes, and I've got stuff in all kinds of phases. And just in case anybody's asking what this is, so this is my main living room, and it gets really bright with all these lights on. So we pull this down, and it's just one of those PVC tablecloths, and kind of just blocks the light a little bit, which, as you can probably tell in the video, so we can keep it hidden. But this is going to be the seeds and the progression in which they're going to go into the ground. And then we'll talk a little bit about the future plans for planting and different things that I'm trying out this year. I shouldn't have taken this off because one-handed it's kind of a pain, but it works really good. So I usually start on the bottom, and these lights actually don't need to be on right now because these are in like the initial phases of growing. But down here, we've got a bunch of stuff going. These are all of our onions, or the majority of them. And you can see here where somebody was asking me what I meant by a haircut. Well, this is what I mean. You can see here where we cut them and then they grow back. And so these will be due for another cut. It's about when they get up to here. So about every 5 inches, we'll cut them back until we grow and until we plant them out. And these are actually going to go into the ground. We'll start putting them in around January 15th. We'll start putting these in the ground. So we've got about another month of them growing, which is good. So, and these are all yellow Granix onions, all of them. So we've got about roughly 600 or so onions here. And these cords are 4 different heat mats that I have running. So excuse those. I don't know if you remember the last video we did, or a couple of videos ago, where I was starting all the seeds. I was talking about the perlite. So this is the cabbage from that video, and you can see they germinated in like 2 days, and that's part of the benefit of having the heat mats on, is that it causes them to germinate really quick. So we're just gonna thin that out a little bit. And I wait to thin them out until they kind of come up, and whichever one's bigger, or if there's one getting shaded out, then I'll thin it out. But these will go into the ground after the onions, I'd say roughly February 1st. So we've got plenty of time on these. We've got 6 more weeks easily of those. And then even if it do say February 1st, we can push it out to the 15th. It really depends on the weather. But February 1st, we should start hardening them off outside. So that should be a fairly decent time frame for that. And they'll go in about a week or 2 before everything else, because once the middle of February hits, it goes really fast. And just to kind of, for any questions that we might have, these are just simple grow lights. They're LEDs. I got the whole rack. I got 6 of them going all the way up for, I believe it was like $60. And they've worked for a couple years, and you can see they work fine. I've got them hooked to these chains, so I have to lift them up as the seeds grow. And I've actually been working on trying to get this right here bent so it doesn't fall off, because it's kind of a pain in the butt. And then I just have 1 fan on each side, on each tier, to blow and strengthen up the seedlings. And a lot of times when you see me talking about them, I'll run my hands over them. That's the same thing. It just kind of bends the seedlings a little bit, gets them a little bit stronger. Because when they're in here and it's nice and still, it's one thing, but when you take them outside, it's a totally different situation. And these onions are the last ones to come up. They have not been trimmed yet. As soon as they get about this tall and they touch this light, we're gonna cut them back. And so these will be the last ones to go out. And I actually have a friend who's starting a fairly decent sized garden, so I'll probably gift him a lot of these onions, or at least this whole row of onions right here. And so the next ones are the dazzling blue kale and the mamba kale. Let me get this out of the way here. Well, I can't. So these are going to go in right after the cabbage, and we're going to try and see what this variety is all about. But we'll put these in probably around February 15th, depending on how big they are. And at minimum, we're going to be needing to make some space because that's the same time I'll be starting my tomatoes. So we'll be moving these into the greenhouse if we have to. So that's another big benefit about having the greenhouses. If some of these get too big, I can move them out there and harden them off out there as well. Either way, I'll have to harden them off, but it's a little bit more gentle of a temperature fluctuation. And the way the weather can be here in Zone 8A in North Carolina is we can easily be having 70-degree days at that point. So if we get like where we see a forecast a week of like pretty good weather, then we know we can get the go-ahead to start hardening them off because it'll be a lot more gentle of a transition. Because right now in my house, and I do keep it kind of cold in my house, it's 67 degrees. And so it'll stay consistently, within 5-degree temperature change of that. So if we can kind of try and match that outside as much as possible, even though we know it's going to get lower, but especially at first when it's starting to change, then it's going to be really good because you're not only hardening them off to sunlight, but you're also doing temperature and even the winds. Even though we have these fans on here, it's still the winds are going to be an issue too and put a lot of pressure on our plants. So these are my two different types of rutabaga. This right here is the purple rutabaga, American purple, and this is the Nakamoto rutabaga. So I'm really excited to grow these just to grow something different. And they're going to go out about the same time as well. So all of these plants that we have growing up here are all going in around the same time. So it kind of gives you a good idea of, yes, the onions go in first and the cabbage, but then after that, like all of these can go in within like a week of each other or 2 weeks. It just really depends on the weather. And so these are all, I'd say about a week old. So the plan is to get all of the ones, so you see the rutabagas, the kales, and the cabbages, get them to where they get their first set of true leaves, where before we have Christmas, we can give them a little shot of fertilizer, just a really diluted shot of fertilizer, and really try to start getting that going. And it's just super diluted. I mean, you can't even hardly smell it when you put it in, but it'll be enough to give them a jump. And then over here, so these two and these two we started 2 days ago, and I have the domes on them. This one's easier so I don't have to bend over. The domes on them because it keeps the moisture in, and when the plant grows up and comes out of the ground, it will automatically have that moisture ready for it and available, so it dries a little slower. And then we do have 3 heat mats. This one is not on a heat mat, so these two are broccoli. They're calabrese broccolis. And even though this isn't on a heat mat, I did this on purpose. I want to see the difference in germination times on these, but I still planted it or put the tray pretty close to the other one, so it's still getting a little bit of heat, but not a lot. But you can see based on it sweating here and not here that it is definitely getting more heat. And if we take a peek, I highly doubt we have anything popping, but yeah, I don't see anything popping just yet. That's okay. And I typically have my broccolis where they get too big in my house before I get them outside. So I really don't want to get them root bound in here at all. And then here on this one, we have, these are our collards. So remember in the last video I said I wanted to get some I started from my own personal seed. This is them. Nothing's popping yet, but this is the big effort for that. And we're going to succession do more of these too. And then this one here is, this is another round of cabbage. So we're going to have a bunch of cabbage, and you can see all this nice moisture in here. And it really eliminates from us having to water or anything like that. Now, if you've ever grown or started from seed and you have a little bit of, sometimes you'll get a little bit of mold on top, what you can do is just kind of crack it a little bit every once in a while, let some air flow in, and that'll help remove the moisture. So if you had to guess what my main issue with starting seeds for in my house is, just take a wild guess real quick. That would be space. So I've told you that I sell a lot of seedlings. This year I'm growing my parents' entire garden from seed for them. So not only do I have my seed, I have my parents' seed going, and then whatever I can sell. And then I have my other buddy who's going to be starting a garden, so I have stuff for him. So as you can see, we have space as a real premium. And you know, I've tested out, like in these onions down here, we have that 162 tray. So it's 162 cells in it. It takes up the same amount of space as these 6-packs, which in a whole 10 by 20 tray is 36 cells. But we just did find, I found on Bootstrap Farmer, they have 72 tray cells. So that's double this. Not as much as the 162, because the problem I have with that is it's small cells, so you kind of need to get in and out with that real quick, you know. But when I start my peppers, for instance, and this is going to be big for my peppers, is now I can put, I left these 2 spots open for a reason. I can put 2 of those trays in here and have 144 seedlings going in them versus just 72 here. So I'll have double the amount growing. And peppers take a long time, so I end up potting them up anyways. So I can just let them grow, pot them up, and then hopefully get them going. And as I clear this out more and more, this won't be an issue, because I'm gonna start my peppers probably, I should do it New Year's Day, but I'll probably do it the day after or something. Depends how much grape juice I drink, and I'm not joking when I say grape juice, I don't drink. But if I have to, you know, these 162 trays, they're gonna be empty. So I'll take everything out of that completely and plant all that, get rid of all those onions, and then I'll have that tray open as well. And then in the coming month, we'll start emptying out each shelf from the bottom up, and then that'll leave space to kind of fill in. So when these go in the ground or get sold, then we're gonna have our tomatoes coming right behind them. And so those 72 tray cells should work out really well for that, because it seems like everybody I know wants a tomato seedling. So we'll be able to start those and have enough space. And within I got 5 trays coming. So I can get as much as I can get almost, I think on these 2 shelves on 1 shelf. So that'll work out pretty good, because both of those I pot up anyways. And in the 162 trays, I'll be doing stuff like flowers, I'll be doing sunflowers, herbs, stuff that really doesn't need a lot of space. Basil's another really good one. So a trick I do with basil is I just sprinkle it into like a solo cup, get a whole bunch of seedlings. I'm talking about like maybe 100 different seedlings going, and then I take them, break them apart, and then put them in pots. You know, these 6-packs and stuff like that, and then I can grow even more. And once I put them outside, then space isn't really an issue. Care is an issue, but not space. So that's the big issue. And so you can kind of see here, I did this light on purpose like this. So sometimes we'll have, like for instance, when this broccoli starts to get bigger, but then we put our peppers here, then we're gonna have this up in the air and this down lower. So you can kind of angle them as needed, and then you just notch them up as you need to notch them up for the height of the plant, because you just want these lights to be just above the plant. And that really helps me plan everything out. And so for these, once they get true leaves and they start, after I give them a couple initial waterings on top, then I really start to only bottom water, and that's where these trays come in really big. And then some stuff, if it's a nice warm day and it's shady on my back porch, and I'll take it outside and I'll water it too. And then that way it's just getting a little bit of sun, you know, kind of giving it that fresh air that it needs, keeping it moving. But if it's really cold, I won't do that, because I obviously don't want to shock it. But all of these plants are cold tolerant. That's super important to remember. So, you know, if you guys have, if I've missed anything, let me know. If you have any kind of different setup that you do, then I would love to see it. But this has really worked well for me. It's just a simple 4-tier shelf. And then I use the 5th tier for storage and stuff like that. Mount it, easy to go. I've been using it for 3 years and I've had no real issues other than stuff that I've done myself. But as far as the equipment goes, it's good. And then the only other issue is space, and that's where these other different types of trays are gonna work really well. So I'll keep you updated on those as I get them. I'm really excited to use the 162 and the 72 cell trays and try them out for different plants, and I'll definitely keep you updated. Goodbye.